Hey guys, Shay here, and this is the uDAC. And this small R2R DAC right here has been getting some rave reviews online from reviewers and customers alike. In fact, I have a friend that switched his $12,000 high-end DAC to this $1,000 DAC. And I know I'm terribly late to this review, but I live with this DAC. I want to tell you all about it. So starting with the build quality and the features, the things that I liked about it, and the things I did not like about it. So right off the bat, packaging quality and presentation wise, one of the best I have ever seen in this price range. Like I usually don't do unboxing or show unboxing in my videos, so when I do, you know that the presentation is really, really good. And the second thing that I really liked about this DAC is that its build quality is excellent. Very highly competitive at this price point, I find, and compared to other $1,000 DACs or around there, the build quality here is exceptional. Not just on the outside is phenomenally built as well with CNC aluminum, but also on the inside. Everything is beautifully laid out and even the board is high quality. And of course, the R2R DAC network also about that presentation, even though it's on the inside, it's a beautiful masterpiece. Not just about the quality parts, but a lot of the build quality, even the CNC aluminum. You know, when I get a lot of components in here, you know, yes, all of them say CNC aluminum, but it's the tolerance, it's the little details in the CNC that makes the product more stand out. And out of all the ones that I've seen so far, this is like MSB level, like this is ultra high-end level of tolerance and CNC aluminum chassis, even though it's a small chassis. And also the internals as well reminds me a lot of the quality I get from something like AccuFace. And actually, that's kind of the ongoing theme here, and it's going to be the ongoing theme, is that this is like a budget AccuFace. If AccuFace made a DAC, a separate external DAC that was small like this is probably what I would imagine. Except it'll be probably more expensive because it's AccuFace. Now, this is a smaller DAC, and there is going to be compromises that come with a smaller DAC like this that we'll talk about in a bit on my dislikes, but there is something to like about a smaller DAC like this, and that's that a smaller DAC like this naturally has a shorter signal path. And outside of that, I love the industrial design. And I rarely say this, but really the look of this unit really speaks to me, especially in that matte black finish. Absolutely phenomenal. It's kind of like right up my jam in terms of the aesthetics of this. Very elegant and very well done. And you know, I don't know about you, but personally for me, when I buy something this small for $1,000, I start to question myself a little bit. But here, I don't feel that way whatsoever. I feel like the value is there above and beyond. And even though it's a small device, it feels substantial because you get really high quality in build quality inside and out. And every time you look at the unit, it just oozes build quality. Every time you go up to it and you touch the unit, it oozes that high quality sensation. And I'm not trying to be hyperbolic here, but when you get so many products in here, you know, and I used to work at a high-end retail store, there are certain products that's in the really high-end category where you just look at it and you're like, oh yeah, that's much higher build quality. It's not about the size, it's not about anything else, but it's the overall quality of the components in and out, the chassis, the whole package that makes it high-end feeling. And it's hard to explain unless you've been around a lot of products, but that's the feeling I get with this. And I have not gotten that feeling on a $1,000 product like ever. I think the closest product that came to that was the Wilsonton, the days where I used to review in my pajamas. But that was a tube integrated amplifier. And yes, the build quality was phenomenal, but it was phenomenal for the price. Here, it's just phenomenal in general. Like if I put it right up against like AccuFace, yeah, it's like at that level in terms of build quality, at least from what I feel about the product. But of course, there are stuff I didn't like about this unit. And so starting with the first one, and probably the biggest one, because this is a small DAC, it doesn't have an internal power supply. It uses external power supply. And unfortunately, the one that comes with the unit is absolutely sucky suck. Now, I do have a solution for that, but we'll talk about that in the later part of this video. Now, the second thing I didn't like about it is also has to do with the fact that it's a small DAC, right? Because it doesn't have much weight to it on its own. If you use any, like remotely I'm not even talking about thick audiophile cables. I'm talking about even remotely a thicker cable that sets this thing off balance, or if you have too many things plugged into it, yeah, it starts to lift a little bit. And that becomes a bit annoying. Now, this one is a small thing and probably just a preference thing for myself. Like, I don't imagine a lot of people really have something to say about this, but I may be wrong. It's the screen. I'm not really a big fan of the pixelated screen. It just, I don't know. It has, the early 2000s kind of feel to it, I guess, in a way. But I don't know. It's just, I don't like the screen's pixelated kind of display. And lastly, while it has plethora of digital connections, it only has one analog output, and that's XLR balanced. So it does not have RCA, and you need to use a converter, and a specific converter that they sell. And no, this is not like a marketing material thing where, they're like, oh, you have to buy our adapters. No, it's more of the fact that if you use the traditional adapters, then the DAC may not perform its best, and this is measurable. So regardless, that is a little bit of a downside, because if you do need RCA, then you need to shell out a little bit more for the converter. But otherwise, I personally use XLR, so it wasn't a deal breaker personally for me. So now let's talk about the sound quality and the things that I liked about it and disliked about it. And of course, I used plethora of different types of music, from rock, R&B to jazz, and even hard rock and metal. But of course, I put some classical, like the Songe album. Now, this is not any classical recording. This is a very special one. This is a original composition by Vincent Belanger, and I helped to record it. And of course, we use the best gear, for example, like the Neumann M150 microphone, that's like $10,000 each, and AEA ribbon microphones, and so on and so forth. The top-notch gear, just top-notch gear. And it's a recording I'm highly proud of, and I highly recommend you pick up. But don't take my word for it. Check out all the great reviews, as well as in my comment section, as well as on the website. A lot of people very, very happy. And let's be real, we're talking about not normal people, but very nitpicky audiophiles, especially my audience out there. So very happy about the result and the feedback we've been getting. Make sure to check it out, and I'll link it in the description. But this was the primary recording I used to test the texture and the layering of the R2R DAC. And I have to say, the Laiv uDAC has all those typical stereotypes of a really good R2R DAC. So in terms of layering, that focus in imagery, and that spaciousness that the R2R DACs are known for, the uDAC has all of that, with the perfect amount of warmth, in my opinion. It is slightly less warm than the Laiv Harmony DAC, the original full DAC that I reviewed. But overall, compared to the modern generation of Denafrips DACs, I find it to be still on the warmer side and more forgiving side. I feel like the Denafrips DACs over time has gone, maybe an unpopular opinion, but personally for me, I feel like it has gone more and more towards the airy presentation, more spacious, at the expense of sounding leaner and more detailed and less about that warmth. So to summarize, the overall tonality sits somewhere between the Denafrips and the Harmony DAC, which does give a distinctive advantage even above the Harmony DAC, and that's that it's more airy. And this gives off a little bit more of a spacious type of presentation even compared to the Harmony DAC, and it does come across a little bit more detailed even compared to the Harmony DAC, but with that distinctive live house sound. And what I mean by that is, whether you heard the Laiv Harmony DAC or the GON amp or the headphone amplifier, they all have this distinctive kind of sound profile. It's detailed, it's nuanced, and it has warmth, but it's smooth across the board from top to bottom. It's never fatiguing. It is smooth, but not too smooth at the same time. And actually, this is very similar to how I would describe the sound of the Accuphase or the Rosso Fiorentino speakers, which happens to be a very good match with the uDAC here. But besides the point, the uDAC also has very similar character as the Accuphase or the Rosso Fiorentino, in that it's neutral, it's balanced with that hint of warmth, and across the board from top to bottom is smooth. But it's also detailed and nuanced. It's not closed off or warm or tubby sounding. It's very, very highly detailed and nuanced and resolute. But it doesn't sound bright or aggressive at all. Also being forgiving while portraying all those nuances and details and delivering without fatigue. And that's what I really appreciate about this DAC. And more than anything, if you want a inviting sounding DAC, I think the uDAC is a really good choice. And in that way, it's very similar to the DAC inside my SCD3.3 CD player from Shanling. Now, for those of you that watched my recent video, you guys know that I'm in love with the SCD3.3's internal DAC with the tube output stage. Well, I was able to compare it directly with the Laiv uDAC because it also has I2S. So I can connect the digital I2S output of the SCD3.3 to the digital input I2S of the Laiv uDAC and just switch the XLR from one or the other to compare the two fairly quickly. And here's what I found. Overall, I still prefer the internal DAC in the SCD3.3. To me, it sounds fuller, it's slightly warmer, but more than anything, that tube output stage makes the sound stage more holographic. So the singer or the instrument seems more in my room, for the lack of better words, right? More holography. So that is what I appreciate. That's what makes my system sound more real to me, more natural. So the SCD3.3 had that going for it. But not all was at the advantage of the SCD3.3. Like it didn't wipe the floor compared to the Laiv uDAC. The Laiv uDAC also had its advantages, and one of them being that it was more pinpoint in the imagery. I did find the soundstage to be quite exceptional and spacious on the uDAC as well, with a blacker background. So the noise floor, maybe perhaps because of the tube output on the SCD3.3, the background isn't as black as the uDAC. The uDAC is like pitch dark black in the background and had more clarity and overall just a little bit more transparent and clean sounding compared to the DAC inside the SCD3.3. So overall, the sound quality of this DAC in this price range, I think is very competitive. And as you've seen, I'm really comparing it to more higher end DACs because I think it's just that great. But I'm clearly not switching from my SCD3.3's internal DAC to this. So let's move on to the dislikes of the sound quality I had with this DAC. So the very first dislike that I have about this DAC sound quality is that it can sound lean with its original power supply that is provided. Think about a lean sound. I usually associate it automatically in my brain with a brighter sound. Usually that's the case, is that a brighter sound, something that is more lifted up into high frequency, tend to have a leaner kind of presentation where the imagery seems a little bit more lean and not as full-bodied. But in this case, it's not like that. Like I said, this is overall a forgiving, warm sounding DAC. That's very inviting. So with this DAC, what you get is a warm tonality, but with a lean presentation in the sound stage. And this is something that you may like actually, because it does feel more nuanced and detailed while keeping that warmth going. So it may just come down to preference. But personally for me, I prefer the more full-bodied nature of the DAC inside my SCD3.3. It just sounded fuller and therefore a little bit more musical sounding to me. Now, even with the external power supply that I used from S-Booster to the uDAC, which in fact did improve the overall body of the sound, it gave a little bit more body and weight to the sound, it didn't quite get to the level of the SCD3.3's internal DAC. It didn't have quite the thickness that I was looking for, but it did get a little bit more fuller. But just not as much as I personally prefer that I do get with the SCD3.3's internal DAC. And honestly, that is pretty much it in terms of the stuff I didn't like about the sound quality of this DAC. There's not much I don't like about it because, again, it sounds very similar to the overall sound profile of my Accuphase, and I love my Accuphase. And if Accuphase was to come up with an external small DAC like this is kind of what I would imagine. However, I did spend quality time with this DAC and I did find some stuff that you can do to improve the overall sound quality of this DAC and take it to the next level. And we already talked about the first one, which was adding an external power supply perhaps as an upgrade option. But the second thing that you can do to improve the sound quality of this DAC, in my opinion, is to enable that oversampling mode, which oversamples everything to 768 kilohertz. And while I'm not really a big fan of oversampling, or at least I used to be not, oversampling has gotten quite good, especially with the Laiv uDAC here. I find that the oversampling does bring improvements to the table, but unfortunately, it doesn't make the overall DAC sound more full-bodied or anything like that. In fact, it just improves upon the things that it was already good at. So things like airiness, things like pinpoint imagery, things like the resolution and the blacker background, the staging, all of that kind of improves slightly and gets added up. When you add them up, it does become something a little bit more tangible, in my opinion. And when it comes to the downside actually of doing the oversampling, I should mention, I did find that the overall sound can become a little bit more fatiguing. In the oversampling mode, I did find that the DAC does become slightly less forgiving to poor recordings. So that's something that I did find. Now, if you were to add the external power supply like the S-Booster and also enable the oversampling mode at the same time, I did find that the overall sound did sound more full-bodied, less lean, and also a little bit more spacious sounding. But for better or worse, the overall sound became top to bottom a little bit even smoother, which reminded me a lot of the Laiv Harmony DAC, and it did get fairly close to that. So external power supply plus oversampling, very close to the Laiv Harmony DAC. Now, however, I think the real improvements that really took this DAC to another level of fidelity is when I used the right compatible source components with it. For example, like the new Shanling CT90, or really any of the units that had the Shanling's upsampling engine. Because while Laiv does rate their I2S compatibility to DSD256, it is also compatible up to DSD512. They're just rating it conservatively. Now, if you have it with the wrong component, at times, if you feed the DSD512 signal, then what can happen with the Laiv uDAC is that the signal gets cut out. And this is why Laiv rates their spec for the I2S to be up to DSD256 and not 512. So that's the kind of the technical side of it. But at the end of the day, it is compatible with DSD512 with the right unit, and the CT90 can oversample all the way up to DSD512, and it works on the Laiv uDAC. I confirmed it. Now, of course, the CT90 is also able to upsample to the 768 kilohertz, much like the oversampling engine inside the Laiv uDAC. So which one is better? Now, I compared the both, and I found that the internal engine inside the Shanling actually did sound better to me. So if I were to use the CT90 with the Laiv uDAC, then I would use the internal upsampling engine of the CT90. But of course, try out both and see what you like. Now, considering the CT90 is about $1,000 and the Laiv uDAC is also about $1,000, and in combination about a $2,000 combination, that I would coin the super combo, because this is a fantastic combination that really gives even my SCD3.3 run for its money. But of course, the CT90 is not an SACD player, so it's not compatible with that. So if you plan to have SACDs or have a large collection of SACDs like myself that you want to play natively, then the SCD3.3 is the only option here. But for like 90-80% of the population out there, the CT90 may be a better choice because it upsamples regardless of the CD type you play. You just can't play SACDs. And so it gives you more flexibility in getting higher resolution fed to like your uDAC, which improves the overall fidelity. Now you might question how much of an improvement will this upsampling even make, but those little differences when you use an external power supply and then oversampling gets piled up and altogether creates an overall presentation that you can definitely tangibly tell is better. So that's exactly what you get here. And I wouldn't say DSD256 sounds less than the DSD512 or the 768 kilohertz. Try all the oversampling, I would say, and see which one suits the best for you. And that's what it's all about, squeezing that last bit of fidelity out of this $1,000 DAC. Now, if you're someone that doesn't play CDs and is like, what are you talking about, Jay? I need a streamer. Recommend me a good streamer to go along with this. Then I would recommend the Eversolo T8. Although it's not able to upsample on its own, it is capable of native DSD playback all the way up to DSD 512, which honestly makes for a nice little streaming setup for about $500 more with the uDAC. That far surpasses the musicality that you can get with the DMP A8. So that's it from me, and I hope this video was informative and entertaining. And if you have any questions, let me know in the comment section. I'll try to answer each one. All I ask is that you click that like button and subscribe for more content just like this. And I'll see you guys on my next video. Until next time.